why do you think that there should be no meat and dairy offered in school meals in England?
I'm going to say I don't think it's a controversial suggestion. I think that the way the Daily Mail presented it today was twisted.
Oh, I haven't read the Daily Mail version.
You probably don't. I mean, who does, right? But
well, quite a lot of people.
Yeah. So they said I was arguing for a ban on meat and dairy in schools, which I'm not. I'm saying take away the law that says you have to have meat and dairy in schools. Let schools choose, let parents choose. And I think that would be a balanced place to be.
Jamie Oliver has said some, or made some, I don't know, controversial but interesting recommendations about what should be in school meals. I would have thought that any child should have a balanced diet, which should include, obviously, a lot of vegetables, but also meat and dairy.
Really?
Yeah, why not?
But that's not a balanced diet. It's not a...
Well, it is. I mean, a vegan diet is not a balanced diet, is it?
Oh, it is, absolutely. Everything we need we can find from plants. We don't need animals.
But a lot of vegans eat lots of supplements, don't they, to make up for the things that they can't get in vegan food.
Are we talking B12?
I've no idea what we're talking about. You tell me.
I think often B12 is one of those myths that we have to eat animals to get B12. Now, the really interesting fact here is that 96% of all of the B12 that we make in our country is fed to animals because they live their lives indoors, and B12 comes from grazing outdoors and they don't get exposed to it. So we actually have to feed B12 to animals so that we can eat B12 from an animal. Of course, we can cut that middleman out.
Well, you talk as if all animals that we eat are indoors, and they're not.
90%.
What? I mean, 90% of pigs may be.
No, 90% of the 1 billion animals a year raised and killed in our country to feed ourselves.
Where does that figure come from?
Oh, I made it up. I didn't really.
But traditionally, as human beings, we have eaten meat, vegetables, dairy. And that has been the staple diet of the human being. And yet in the last 10 years, well, maybe more than 10 years, but sort of vegan diets have become more popular. I tried to have a sort of pseudo-vegan diet at one stage because I had a medical issue, a hiatus hernia, and they said you have to eat a sort of Mediterranean food diet. So I sort of tried that, and I genuinely did try. I bought vegan cheese, which I thought was the most disgusting thing I'd ever eaten, let alone smelt, in my life. So that put me off that.
I think that about cheese, by the way.
And well, and you're perfectly. I'm not criticising. You're perfectly entitled to. But it's the sort of the thought that if you don't eat a vegan diet, somehow you're an evil person, and that's, I think, the projection that's coming across from the so-called vegan lobby.
Okay, well, if it is, that's unfortunate. I think that's unhelpful. That's not where I'm coming from. But I want to go back to the first thing you said, which is that our background as human beings is in meat, dairy, and that kind of stuff. It actually isn't. And most of the world are vegan now because it's not normal to eat animals, because it's expensive to raise animals. Take a cow, for example. We put 10 times more protein into a cow by way of plant material that we could eat often, not grass, but I'm coming to that, to get 1 kilo back out, 10 times more in than we get back out. It's a very inefficient food system. And if you just go back to the end of the Second World War, the amount of meat and dairy that we ate in our country was tiny compared to today. And then we invented industrial agriculture, fertilizers, intensive animal farming and that kind of stuff, which made meat abundant and cheap, and we ate far more of it. We've eradicated almost wildlife in our country because we've taken all of the land from them to grow the plants, to feed the animals, to feed ourselves. This is the root of the problem. And if you look at rural China, for example, it's hundreds of millions of people that rarely, if ever, ate meat, maybe once a year. As they've looked to have a Western diet, which is meat almost every day, that's caused a lot of the problems around the global climate crisis, the degradation of the rainforest and that kind of stuff. So it's wrong to think that this is our background and this is normal for us. It's become normal since, in our country, the end of the Second World War.
But if we go back centuries, I mean, man would hunt animals to eat. So therefore, it's not a recent invention that we eat meat, is it? It goes back sort of to the beginnings of time. Just
in the quantities that we eat it now. So we used to be foragers. We didn't just used to hunt animals. We would forage for berries and nuts and things like that. And then we invented farming.
I've watched Outlander too.
Have you? I don't know what that is, but
you should watch it. It's very good. I have this theory that I think I'm a farmer's son, I mean, not like large industrial farm. It's 220 acres, mainly growing crops, but also we had beef cows, but we stopped that as soon as we joined the European Economic Community in 1973. We had pigs, but it was a fairly small operation. But as somebody who has lived more of a sort of metropolitan life since my teenage years, I found that I eat less meat now than I used to, and I think it's the sort of this famous nudge theory. That's what I think environmental campaigners would be better concentrating on, sort of nudging us in the right direction and saying, well, no, we're not saying you can't eat meat or you shouldn't eat meat. We're not trying to sort of lecture you and make you feel bad about yourself. But these are the benefits from reducing your meat intake. And I suspect I eat half as much red meat as I did even 10 years ago. And it's not been a conscious thing, it's almost been subconscious. And I don't do it because I think I'm doing the right thing, but I know it's healthier for me and my body by doing it, because that's gone into my brain somehow.
Yes.
Isn't that the way forward?
I think it is. I have to agree with you. Red meat consumption has fallen by 30% in 10 years in our country.
Is that right?
Yeah, so you're part of that trend. We've become more aware that red meat is particularly bad for us, more than any other form of animal product. They're all bad for us. And we just have a kind of rising tide of awareness. The internet helps us with that. People are choosing to eat less meat and dairy because of health concerns. And I think that's really important. And I don't advocate an overnight stopping of this kind of stuff or an absolute stop. I just think we all need to get on the path and eat less. It's also the major driver of the climate crisis. You probably know animal agriculture, the major cause now of the global climate crisis. Yes, and burping. Actually, I think they burp more than they fart, but I don't really know that.
I've never heard a cow burp.
Apparently they do. And it's also the major driver of the wildlife crisis around the world. The sixth mass extinction on our planet in 4 billion years is happening now, and it's driven by animal agriculture, which is why Oxford Uni published a study that showed if we were all plant-based instead of eating what we eat now, we could free up 75% of farmland globally, which in our country means half of our entire country. We can give it back to nature. We've lost nature because we've taken the land to grow plants, to feed animals, to feed ourselves, and it's an incredibly efficient system.
A couple of texts here. This is from Angus, who says, tell Dale Vince a lot of vegan food is full of additives and is ultra processed. If you have natural ingredients from scratch, they are, yes, healthy, but many people can't afford these costs, and schools certainly can't. I'm mainly vegetarian, cooking from scratch, but I still occasionally eat organic meat and still try to have fish. That is true. There are a lot of additives, aren't there, in vegan food?
I think there's been a rise lately of what's often referred to as dirty vegan products or dirty veganism, which is a concept I really don't like. And it tries to mimic...
You dirty vegan, you.
That's right. It's full of salt and fat and sugar and all that kind of stuff. And the saturated fat in these dirty vegan burgers, for example, is no better than from an animal burger. That's not true vegan food. True vegan food comes from plants. Plants are always cheaper than animals because of the diminishing returns. When you feed plants to animals, you get less back out at the end. And it doesn't have to be that way. And by the way, on the subject of schools, we have a company that makes school dinners. We're in 1 in 4 English primary schools, and we absolutely do not cost more than meat products.
Another WhatsApp message from Zara, who says, can you ask your guest what happens to people like her that have medical conditions that cannot, and people who can't manage a vegan diet? She says, I would like to know if he would promote a nationwide meat ban.
Not a ban. I think we're on a path. You're on a path. I think that we all now are aware of the problems of our intensive meat diet, and I think we all need to take steps to reduce that. And it's for the climate, it's for our own health, it's of course for the animals, because they're sentient creatures, and industrial animal farming is such an abusive process, but it's also for nature. The decline in nature in our country, we've lost our rainforest. We worry about the rainforest in the Amazon, but we've lost ours, and it's because of our animal agriculture. It doesn't have to be that way.
Were you in for Keir Starmer's speech today?
I was.
And what did you make of it? Did you hear what you wanted to hear?
I missed the bit where he said sausage instead of hostage.
Do you know, I missed that too. I didn't know what people were talking about afterwards. I don't know whether I'd fallen asleep or something. But,
I wondered if his auto cue had been hacked or something. I think he missed it as well. But look, I thought he presented as a very serious leader of our country. He said he would be prepared to take difficult decisions that would make him unpopular. For example, in the national interest, he was prepared to say that people will need to live next to new prisons, to pylons and that kind of stuff in the national interest. I thought we haven't heard that from a leader of a government for such a very long time. And his core philosophy to me seemed to be about service. He's here to serve the country, and we haven't heard that for a very long time. I did like that part.
And you're a major donor to the Labour Party. What do you expect to get in return for your donations?
It's a good question, frequently asked. I have the same answer every time. I gave money to the Labour Party ahead of the election to help them win the election. There's always a funding gap between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party. I wanted them to win. I thought it was the most important outcome for our country, and that's it, full stop.
And you haven't bought any clothes for them, have you?
I haven't. No, I haven't. Somebody said to me earlier today, "Would you like him to wear the same kind of clothes that you wear?" That was a media question. It was a strange question. The answer is no.
Well, it would be an interesting change for him, wouldn't it?
It would, actually.
I'm not sure what the Daily Mail would write about that. Well, I am actually, but